Thank you for taking time out of your out of the dog sitting to talk all things Superhost. I think like sort of 2013 to 2015, you were super busy doing projects, and then you sort of took a step back to focus on school. So that's obviously meant that you've not been doing as much acting work. So what was it about Superhost that stood out as something that you wanted to make?
I think mostly the character was super juicy. When I read the script, I also watched Brandon's first two films, and I was like, this is a really capable director, and like those movies are so scary. And it was, of course, an honor for somebody to be trusting me to be the scary thing in his next movie. Yeah, definitely reading the script, it just felt like it's just such a mineable text, and there's such a juicy character in here.
I mean, you're the first human monster in one of his films. So does that come with added pressure?
I did. It was added pressure. I was like, how am I going to stand up against Z, man?
Exactly. I mean, previously, you played a lot of troubled teens or like angsty ghost girls within the horror genre. Was it nice to sort of play a character that I guess was a bit more in line with sort of, in a way, your Disney role, a bit lighter and more comedic?
Yeah, it was really fun to find the comedy, and it was funny. They shot a whole week of Superhost before I showed up, and it was interesting to see how people reacted to like, oh, there's like a tone shift happening. But it's definitely like fine. Like what's compelling about the character is pressing the boundaries of what you'll accept and weird behavior before you actually consider it dangerous. And so I thought adding comedy to it would be a really fun way to toy with that. Like, how much is somebody just aloof, and how much do you consider them a threat? And like doing interviews for it, so many people have asked me like, do you stay in Airbnbs? And people have talked about like, I would never stay with somebody who was acting like that. And I was like, really? Like, just like a little bit too friendly and kind of socially awkward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, Rebecca's sort of almost a combination of two Stephen King characters. Pennywise and Annie Wilkes. Were there any characters that Brandon sort of pointed you in a direction for as a reference to what he wanted?
Yeah, he had me watch Creep, was what he recommended. And I did. I watched Creep and Creep 2. Beautiful. Love Mark Duplass. Those are really beautiful performances. And then I guess like I was a combination of thinking about her actual psychological state, and then channeling people who do sort of performative exuberance, and especially like performative hyper feminine like social performance, and like people who I know that do that, and like trying to just push that to at what point does that become psychopathic.
I mean, I think I spoke to Brandon yesterday, and he sort of he said he gave you a note at one point to act like you were hungry when you're sort of like walking around outside the house. Was there a lot of notes like that from him, or did he sort of just let you cut loose?
There was a lot of him guiding me through a shot that was not dialogue taking place. And that was one of the funnest moments of it, was shooting through the window. It's like really cold at nighttime. And like, he was like, you're hungry. And I had like tears and snot and a little bit of drool. And I'm not sure, it was a dark shot. I'm not sure how much actual drool was visible, but there was like all the kinds of human moisture on my face. Not all the kinds. But yeah, he was just like coaching me through it, and just like it was this really animalistic thing, and just like talking me through it and getting in the mindset and just going on a roll.
I mean, a lot of Rebecca's backstory is sort of shrouded in mystery. But I know that when we spoke for Dark Summer, you kept a journal for Mona. Did you do a similar thing here? Did you work out in your own mind where Rebecca had come from?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that came from the script originally. Like Mona, I definitely had a lot of playlists and like was journaling, very like teenage angsty activities. Rebecca is like, I just needed to really have an idea of where she was coming from. And sometimes like some of it just worked out in terms of visual storytelling. Like I happened to have pandemic hair that was like, used to be blonde for a Lifetime movie, and like had some brunette over it, but there was like a hard line. I was like, this looks like someone who was dyeing their hair to a more conventional color about 6 months ago, and they've been on the run. And there's the detail in the interview scene where she mentions South Carolina too many times. And so to me, I was like, this is somebody who is comfortable lying, doesn't have like a lot of empathy, but isn't like getting joy out of compulsively lying and conjuring up ridiculous stories. And so I figured like somebody like that probably was sheltered. Probably she got pulled from my backstory. She probably got pulled from school for a violent event very early, was homeschooled probably by one parent. I made it her dad, and was like living this sheltered lifestyle where the example of human behavior was television and then eventually social media. And I think eventually dad said no too hard. And then Rebecca pushed back and probably killed him, and then has been on the run trying to find somebody to replace that role of caregiving. And when nobody else is going to caregive the way that dad did. And then the backstory then with all of the rings on the necklace became that they were from the previous kills. And that was just from Alyssa Christensen, all of the wardrobe. The wardrobe was really inspiring to me. Like I kind of pictured her as more like flannelly living in the woods. And then I showed up and it was much more like hipster contemporary. And I was like, oh yeah, because her human example is Instagram. Like, let's go with that.
The thing is, you say, she's sort of learning through what she sees on social media. And, she is just looking for that human connection, which I guess is something that, especially over the last couple of years, a lot of us can relate to in a strange sort of way.
Yeah, definitely. We all went online, and there is this sort of non-human connection thing that happens on the internet, and there is this psychopathy of presenting something that is not real. And I think, a movie that is dealing with social media, like influencer characters, pushing that to see how far, like when we're all used to this sort of psychopathic experience of communicating by text online, etc., like when does that become too disingenuous?
And the crew, I think Brandon said yesterday, was like 14 people maximum. I mean, you're coming off of like Teen Beach movies, which I'm guessing there's more than that in the cast alone. So what was it like sort of going into this this small, like, close-knit community?
I feel like I've done a lot of small crew shoots, but I love the intimacy of that. Like, it feels like everybody is always actively doing something. There's a lot less hurry up and wait. And you get to actually like really watch lighting get constructed instead of it just being 10 people who have that job and 3 of them are taking a cigarette break or whatever. It was really, it felt really lovely to have such an intimate film crew when we were making such an intimate film. I really loved it. It was also like then with the cast, like it felt like it was really connected, in a world that wasn't so connected, but also like more isolated than most film, in that like there wasn't really much hanging out. Like I definitely invited Barbara over to my hotel room after, but it's not like we went to dinner on a mountain during a pandemic.
I was going to say, you and Barbara were both in Tales of Halloween, but you were in different stories within the anthology. So what was it like, getting to share screen time with with this horror icon?
Yes, I think we had briefly met for the Comic-Con panel for that movie. So like there's pictures that we were both in together. Yeah, it was really wonderful to work with Barbara. She was so just down to get bloody and dirty in the dirt, and like for an icon like that to be just so willing to like work and like do the messy acting stuff. And it was a little bit of pressure, just feeling like I was being really pandemic safe, but just screaming in Barbara Crampton's face, just like screaming right in her face. Was a little nerve-wracking. But yeah, she was so fucking cool. Just brought so much energy, and it was a really fun, just like I think 1 or 2 days with Barbara on set. Yeah.
And I mean, I think I've met her a few times and interviewed her, and she is a big champion of indie horror. What do you think that she brings to these productions? I mean, I guess obviously one thing would be exposure. I guess that's really important for a project of this size.
Yeah, there's that, but it's also the fun of it. Like, I don't know, like knowing, I feel like horror is, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to figure out why it's more significant than that, but it's just fun if you've seen somebody that you love doing a certain thing. Like I've sort of like, I have some horror stuff that I've done, and then I have some stuff that like horror films would never want to watch that I've done. But I think it's really, it's more than just the exposure. It's really, I'm not finding the good words for it. I guess there's a way in which it reminds me of artists and painters referencing one another. Like, like, I don't know, I guess Monet's Olympia means more because of Titian's Venus of Urbino. And it's like, what are you saying about the nature of prostitution in these two eras? And it's like, what are you saying about what it is to be a female character in horror film over all these decades? And watching Jacob's Wife is fucking great.
Yes, really good in that. She's really good in that.
It means more because it's Barbara, and Barbara's been in the art that is being referenced by the new art. It just means more.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess this is like you say, it's a very modern horror film. I guess some of the other films that you've done in the past within the horror genre have been a bit more in line with the traditional things. What do you think it is about social media that opens up the the world to these scary stories?
Yeah, I think horror plays with where we're socially vulnerable, and we're so exposed when we're putting ourselves online. Because everything that you're saying online, you're also not saying a lot of things. Like, I'm at a coffee shop also means I'm not home. And just, yeah, we were playing with those vulnerabilities. Like, what does it mean to be alone in a cabin in the woods? What does it mean that this stranger who knows where you're sleeping and has a key to your house has your phone number?
It's terrifying. I guess so my final question would be, once the world opens up again, do you have any sort of dream projects that are on the bucket list that you would really like to do?
Oh, well, I have read that they're making a G-darn Alien TV show, which is what I think about when I'm doing push-ups. I love that franchise. And it's also focusing on more of the corporate aspect. I'm like, oh, that's really what I would want to get into if we were doing an Alien show. That sounds good. I don't know. I kind of go by character. Like, I think a lot of actors think about like directors and projects. And for me, like, if it's like the inner life has to be really compelling for me. And if the inner life of the character is compelling, like any kind of genre project is compelling to me.
Cool. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed that maybe you get cast in Aliens. I mean, you can see, but right here is my Aliens collection of spin-off stories. So yeah, kindred alien spirit. So hopefully, I wish you luck with that, and I wish you best of luck with Superhost.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you.